And so there are, in fact, many issues we need to deal with our forest, and sustainable forestry is, of course, most important of them.
This is Riga Port, where consignments of timber are waiting to be shipped to the UK. Last year, timber exports rose by 53%. The UK remains the biggest customer. Latvian timber was even used in the construction of the Olympic Stadium, which was supposed to set a new benchmark in sustainable development.
The speed of using it is far beyond any sustainable use. So I would compare this, if you want to run a marathon, you need to run a marathon in a proper speed, but if you take it as 100 meters sprint, you will die. And in this case, of course, not company will die, forests will die.
At the moment, Latvia's forests are home to an astonishing array of plants and animals, unique in Europe. If the logging can be controlled, then the forests and the wildlife in them will be preserved for future generations. On its present course, they could be lost forever.
We asked the 3 UK home improvement retailers mentioned in our film, Homebase, B&Q and Travis Perkins, to respond to some of the issues it raised. B&Q and Homebase declined to comment. Travis Perkins gave us a statement. The company said that it buys Latvian timber in good faith from LVM, among other suppliers, but that the wood currently going through its sawmills came from logs stockpiled before LVM's suspension from the FSC. The company agreed that the situation in Latvia was far from satisfactory, but pointed out that LVM was now seeking recertification. It added,
Travis Perkins risk assesses all its timber buying activity. In this case, we take the view that the medium-term prospects for forestry management in Latvia are good and are better served by our continued interest in buying certified product from the country.
That's it for this edition of People in Power. If you'd like to comment on this episode or any other matter, we'd love to hear from you on aljazeera.net/English. Until next time, bye-bye.
Business Latest is brought to you by the Qatar Tourism Authority and Capco. Business Latest is brought to you by the Qatar Tourism Authority and Capco.
All sides, all views, all ways. Al Jazeera.
Be thrilled by the speed. Be delighted by the tastes. Be inspired by the sights. And enjoy the hospitality. The Muscat Festival. It's here, January 27th to February 24th.
Qatar Tourism Authority invites you to the 8th Doha Jewellery and Watches Exhibition from the 15th to the 20th of February 2011 at the Doha Exhibition Centre. Sponsored by Qatar National Bank and Qatar Airways.
As China undergoes profound changes, competition for jobs becomes a struggle to survive. 2 graduates fresh out of college seek employment in a city of 8 million people. Now entering the real world, the graduates become increasingly desperate and begin to question their college-trained talents. It's a time of hope and frustration for the workforce of the future. Faces of China at this time on Al Jazeera.
Personal blogs by professional journalists. blogs.aljazeera.net
Moving on Parliament, Egyptian protesters outside, troops inside as the pro-democracy demonstrations continue. Good to have you with us. Warm welcome to Al Jazeera, coming to you live from Doha with me, David Foster. Also in this programme, 7 killed, more than 70 injured in a series of car bombings targeting Iraqi security forces. Italian prosecutors request an immediate trial for the Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi on charges of sex with an underage prostitute. Growing discontent in Pakistan, a shooting incident in Lahore severely strains US-Pakistan ties. Well, if the size of the crowds in Liberation Square speaks volumes, then taking the protest to Parliament says it's not just Mubarak we want out, it's his followers too. And take a look at this live shot from Tahrir Square. The crowds still large there, still vocal. Across the city, in Parliament, soldiers have taken up positions inside. Demonstrators saying they'll camp outside indefinitely. Now, what's happening in Parliament is symbolically important, but more obvious in terms of the latest developments are strikes and talks going on between what are known as the wise men and the Vice President. We're hoping to get one of those wise men on this programme in a little while. As we see the crowds assembling round about 7 o'clock in the evening in Cairo. So let's bring in Amr Hamzawi. Mr. Hamzawi, I've referred to you as one of the wise men. I shall also describe you as a research director and part of the Carnegie Middle East Center. But I'm right in thinking that you've been part of this group that has sat down either with the Vice President or the Prime Minister for talks. Am I right?
Yes, you're right. We sat down with the Vice President and the Prime Minister. Those who sat down were 4 members of our group. I was not one of them, but I do know what happened in the meetings, and this has been announced to the Egyptian public opinion yesterday and the day before.
Have you, in your discussions with the Vice President, gone into any detail about President Mubarak's possible departure before September?
No, the official position, be it from the Vice President or the Prime Minister's position, is that the President is going to remain in office until September, and that he continues to practice his authorities, and that he is responsible for putting Egypt on a democratic transition path, which is basically our main problem, guys, be it in our committee or in the Tahrir Square. No.
So from your position, their stance in saying that he won't go before September is unacceptable?
It is unacceptable because we lack trust in Mr. Mubarak's commitments to political reform, and even more so after we have been seeing the first announced steps by the ruling establishment in the last days. These do not mount to a reform package. These are minor steps where we are hearing that the state of emergency would be pending the security situation in the country, where we are hearing that the parliament will not be dissolved in spite of the fact that there are kind of rigged elections, where we are hearing we are going to amend the constitution, but it's going to be the new president in September to decide in which direction Egyptian politics will be going. These are not reassuring steps, and we lack trust in what the establishment is doing. And analytically, I see it as more of an attempt to consolidate the authoritarian system and not to open.
Have you discussed with Omar Suleiman, the Vice President, a possible transfer of powers to him from President Mubarak?
We did. We've suggested a formula in which the president demands the constitutional amendments from Parliament, dissolves the Parliament, can do that with a presidential decree, and then transfers the powers needed to manage the transitional phase to democracy to the vice president. The vice president is trusted. I am afraid that if we stay in the situation which we are, I'm not sure whether the vice president or the prime minister will have the popular acceptance we did have a couple of days ago.
And when you suggested a transfer of powers to Mr. Suleiman as vice president, what was the reaction?
No, the reaction was a clear rejection. And the reaction was, no, the president is not contemplating that possibility. He is staying in office until his term ends, and then we will see. But what is even more worrying, because in a way I feel that if we continue to discuss the president's question, or the Mubarak question, if I may say so, that we are being misled. What we need here is to see a clear package to re-engineer Egyptian politics in the direction of opening and democratization. And I'm yet to see it. I'm seeing more of a consolidation, an attempt by the authoritarian structures to sustain the power, and even sort of a threat which was pronounced by the vice president. Well, if you guys continue to do and ask and demand what you are demanding, which is as far as I am concerned, that we cannot rule out the possibility of a coup, or where he is questioning whether Egypt is ready for democracy or not in an interview a couple of days ago. These issues are to my mind, not helpful in terms of establishing trust in where we are going.
And when he talks of a possible coup, what do you think he means?
Well, it's difficult for me to imagine what he means. If I take it in a benign way, and I hope it is the case, so he is concerned about restoring public order. But, well, as we all know, public order was messed up with, not due to demonstrating or protesting citizens and their activities, which have been peaceful, but due to rogue elements in the security apparatus, an informant terrorizing network, which we discovered, and rogue elements in the NDP, corrupt businessmen. And so if this is a benign way to see it. If he means it in an unbenign manner, it's basically a threat coming from the military establishment addressed to Egyptians. Well, guys, stop demanding democracy. We gave you part of what you have wished for, and that's it, which is really very much anti-democratically spirited.
Mr. Hamzawi, thank you very much indeed. I'll just remind our viewers that we've been